Hey, women of welcome. How are you? I don't know about you guys, but I am in very, very cold Colorado, and it's like 3 degrees. Well, maybe like 9 degrees. And I'm going to be joined with Vivian Mabuni here in just a second. She went with us to the border, and I'm going to let her in here in just a second. But we're going to be chatting today just about that experience. Hey, Viv,
Good to see you,
how
Bri.
are
Can you hear me
you?
okay?
I can hear you
Good.
great. Oh, good to see your face this morning.
Good to see
Okay,
your
you're
face.
calling from California, yes?
Yes, it's warmer here than there.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we had delayed school today because it was so cold out. And I know for all of you who are like up north in Minnesota, you're like 9 degrees, no big deal. But like in Colorado, it's very cold and I'm not loving it. So, man. So Viv and I are going to jump on just real fast because it's going to be like such a quick conversation. But Viv went with us to one of our most recent border trips. And there is all kinds of conversation, obviously, with what's happening with the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. And we're seeing what tangible welcome can do for families and for women and for children at these border crossings. And we take these trips seasonally. Women of Welcome takes these trips down to the border, down to our southern border. And Viv came on a trip with us. And so I'm just going to ask her 3 questions that I think would probably really encouraging for those who are looking at, well, what do we do about the humanitarian crisis that we have at our own border? There's obviously some differences there, but there's also some really big similarities too. So, Viv, had you ever been to the border before, the southern border before?
No, it was my first time. First
Okay,
time.
so why on earth did you say yes to coming?
I actually had a pause before I said yes because
And you've never
I
told me this, so this
yeah.
is interesting.
So on one hand, having met you and knowing Jenny Yang and thinking the world of both of you, um, my yes came because of the relationship that I have with you and
Yeah.
the trust that I knew would go into. So my yes came as a result of recognizing that there are so many things that I did not understand
Mhm.
about the border, about immigration, about refugees, and I want to have a posture to learn, but
Mhm.
often there's so much noise out there, it's hard to know who to trust. And I think after this pandemic, well, we're still kind of in it as well, but
Yeah.
there's this compassion fatigue, this my yes came really as a place to just, give God my heart because there's a part of me that just would rather look away. Like there's enough hardship going on everywhere that it was hard to enter in, but I wanted to be with women that I trusted. And I am a strong proponent in how women can change the world. And
Mhm.
women are part of righting the wrongs. And from the Bible and just looking around and having interfaced with incredible women, I see the difference that we make. And so being a part of Women of Welcome made a lot of sense to me personally with trying to understand better the situation at the border.
So you said yes. First, you had a pause. You said yes, and really, what I hear you saying is relationship was a part of it, but it was also you were making a decision to lean in, even though you were already probably tired and you
Yeah,
had some compassion fatigue, which I think many of us can relate to.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think to be able to process and talk through what we were experiencing and to have, to be able to ask the questions and know that that would be held well and that we could there wasn't going I understood that we weren't going to just solve all the problems, but I needed an entry point with trusted people. And I believe in the phrase proximity matters. And
Mhm.
I think being in person there, seeing with my own eyes, hearing the information, hearing the stories, it really did alter my view on everything and to
Mhm.
for the better. absolutely for the
Wow.
better.
Okay, so then that takes me to the second question, and that is, what is your biggest takeaway? What was on the trip kind of your like aha, or wow, that didn't leave me?
Okay, so there actually were a few ahas for sure.
Okay.
So I don't know if I can narrow it down to one, but I saw with my own eyes on both sides of the border how followers of Christ can make a difference. And there was something incredibly beautiful about being on the Juarez side and meeting um, a leader of the church who had this incredible property on the Juarez side and asking God, what can I do? And transforming this space to be one of flourishing, of, actually growing food and, just the vision of being able to take immigrants who are fleeing, refugees who are fleeing. 13 different countries were represented in this one space, and this abundance mentality to provide practical needs as well as dignity to people in really harrowing situations. The stories that we heard, Bri, you were there. It was heartbreaking on the Juarez side, and then to go to the El Paso side and to see a church that literally transformed their basketball court and
Yeah.
fellowship hall to be a place to receive immigrants and have the first welcome into our country be one from the church with hot water, showers, food, resources, diapers, clothing. I mean, it was inspiring to me to see very tangibly that followers of Christ can make a difference.
Yeah. I think what struck me, what Viv is talking about is we were on the Juarez side of the border in Mexico, and this pastor, he had been called to pastor this kind of smaller church than what he had been pastoring in another area of Mexico. And he was wondering why God had called him to this place. He wanted to do something big for the kingdom, and he was going to a smaller place. And yet the Lord placed him in this smaller church, but that had property to be developed, and that it also was a meeting place of the world. And the fact that he was serving over 13 countries in
Mm-hmm.
that one place, and then he started sustainable farming on the church grounds and whatnot. It was just this beautiful representation of that. And then on the El Paso side, we met with a Baptist church who had transformed their beautiful gym. I don't know about
Mm-hmm.
you, but like a lot of our like church facilities are kind of like protected spaces. Like, hey, don't scratch the floor, and hey,
Mm.
like, no, we're not going to drag chairs across here. This is a specific way to do it, so that we like. And I get it's all in like the stewarding of the resource as well. But we get to this point where we just like everything has to be so like pristine
Mm.
that we don't utilize those spaces for the needs around us. And this church like flipped their cafeteria, they flipped their gym, they flipped their offices to have like clothing closets for people. So it was one of those things where it was like this church could have just been like, yeah, this is how we kind of use this space, and this is how we used our money for it. And instead they were so open-handed with what God
Mm-hmm.
had given them, which was
Yeah.
beautiful.
It was absolutely beautiful. And I think that posture of recognizing how much abundance we have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that I think often, and I understand that immigration and immigration reform, it's so complex. It's so nuanced, and that's why the trip was so helpful, because it really did provide perspective from Border Patrol agents and the church and actual people who were undocumented and their stories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was really well done. I mean, Women Welcome as an organization is an organization of excellence and integrity, and I really saw that firsthand. And so that was wonderful. I think in that when we talk about our borders, I sometimes think that believers can become so protective in a way that we forget how large our country is, like actual space wise, and how many resources we have. And for people seeking asylum, people escaping dangerous situations, there's this that poem that we read from the British Somali poet that says, you have to understand, no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. And I think women, we identify with that so
You get
deeply.
that.
Like, we get that. And so that sense that no one's trying to, I don't think the vast majority of immigrants and refugees are seeking a free handout. There is really an issue of danger, and um, and I think for us to understand on this side of the border, recognizing how much we have and
Mm-hmm.
how much our resource can further, it's like an investment into the future, and the future is beautiful. There's not, I think that we can tend to dehumanize groups of people rather than understand that all people are made in the image of God, and what a wonderful opportunity to display the generosity that our God offers to people that he loves as well. Like, we can be the hands and feet, and that is so inspiring to me.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's so interesting is that culture has really made us feel like we have to choose a side. You know, it's either we're for safe borders or we are for open borders. I mean, there's seems to be little room for conversation in between.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people talk to me about this, I'm like, of course we can't take everyone. Of course there are people who are showing up at the border to evade agents. Of course there are people here that want or that are trying to get across that will cause us harm. And of course we should obviously have secure and safe borders in order to protect American citizens. But for those who are fleeing dangerous circumstances and countries in which that aren't providing opportunities for them to flourish and to thrive, what does it look like to have effective doors that are open?
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like along a secure border? What does that look like? And so it's always so refreshing to find a group of women who think, okay, we can talk about this and not in these polar opposites. We can talk
Mm-hmm.
about it with nuance. We can talk about it and disagree on policy points, but we're not going to disagree about our care and concern for people.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what we're seeing around the world right now. When everyone's looking at Ukraine, they're saying, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
we care about people. This is a humanitarian crisis. So
Absolutely.
I love what you said. I love that you came. What is one thing, this last question, what is one thing you would encourage women who may be on the outside looking in to
Mm-hmm.
this subject matter, or to Women of Welcome, whatever that may be? I'm thinking more subject matter. If you're on the outside looking in and you're kind of skeptical about entering into this space, what would be your encouragement?
My encouragement would be to lean in, to take
Mm-hmm.
a chance, take a risk, lean in and learn. I think that learner posture is so important, because we all come in with our preconceived notions of how things are. And in the same way with that TED talk that's so famous, The Danger of a Single Story, we can take our lens, and if it's skewed in a certain way, view things completely differently than it actually may be. And
Mm-hmm.
so for us, I mean, even with our group, having Jenny Yang, who, you know, walked us through the history of immigration, and uh, just gaining more accurate information is helpful, because sometimes we're taking a soundbite and deciding on issues that we may not have an expertise in. And so, you know, as wonderful as social media is, you know, all of a sudden every teenager is an expert on, you know, Ukraine
Something.
now or whatever, you
Right.
know. So I think it's important to be able to go with trusted people. And so my encouragement would be absolutely lean in, be a learner, find trusted people who understand how to hold in tension varying views.
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes there's a danger for those coming from a more conservative space, that if the only information they've been receiving is one where it's like, this is just a hard no, you know, really let's move into this space and understand a little bit more. And in the same way, with the humility of people coming in from the other side of saying, you know, we really have got to just, you know, tear it all down, and not hold an understanding of recognizing of what does it mean to have safe borders. You know, we we can tend to, and I think you mentioned this, Bri, just we tend to polarize so quickly rather than take on a posture of humility and take on a posture of learning. So I would absolutely say, let's move in, and proximity matters, and we don't do it alone. And I think that that's the other piece as well. We can formulate all sorts of opinions just based on, you know, our limited knowledge, but when we are able to move toward learning together, learning in community, and, you know, moving all of this, just untangling some of this, I think we come away more well-rounded and able to make informed decisions, and able to then take our resources, our time, our affections, and put them into places where God will take what we do, and I believe multiply.
Viv, thanks for saying yes. Thanks for hanging out with me real quick this morning. I hope what Viv said was super helpful. And I hope what she said encouraged you to keep leaning into this space. I know it can be a hard space to lean into. It feels like the mountain that never moves. And there's lots of issues out there that feel like that. And there are times of rest. And then there are a lot of times of leaning in. So thanks for the reminder, Viv. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.